These are your Unit 1A, Day 8 notes. In this video, you are going to review the properties that we have worked on for the last 2 days, and given examples, you're going to identify what property is associated with the given equation. So for example, the first one right here is commutative addition. Well, we know commutative has to do with moving around. So the order. And it also has the word addition right here. So the first thing I know is that it has to be an addition problem. And it's an addition problem where the numbers have moved around, but it's still the same number. So if I look right here, I have an addition problem. 6 plus 0 is equal to 6. That's not the same numbers moved around. So I know that would not be it. Then I keep looking. Oh, 4 plus negative 4 equals 0. That is not the numbers moved around. Ooh, but I look up here. 10 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 10. That is the same numbers moved around. So I know that that is the commutative property. Okay? So I suggest writing down these hints before you get started. So we have the commutative property here of multiplication. And that commutative, remember, is when you move around. Next, you're going to find the associative property of addition. Associative refers to the numbers and how they're grouped. So your groups of integers. And then you have the same thing here. You have the associative property, but this time it's multiplication. Associative, you are looking at how the numbers are grouped, so groups. Next, we have the additive identity. And when we're looking at the additive identity, it is what can you add to keep the number the same, okay? Keep its identity. And remember, when you're adding, in order for the answer to stay the same, you add 0. Now, the inverse is when you add the opposite, because you're trying to get an answer of 0. So it's equal to 0. Now, with the multiplicative identity, again, it's identity, so you're trying to get the answer to stay the same. And in order to do that, it's when you multiply by the number 1. And then the multiplicative inverse, you're trying to get an answer of 1. And you do that, remember, by multiplying by the reciprocal. And last but not least, we have the distributive property. And the distributive property is when you have a number outside of two numbers in a parentheses, and you multiply that number by both numbers in the parentheses. That's your distributive property. You are distributing the number on the outside to both on the inside. Okay, little friendly reminder of what these little hints for these properties. So go ahead. What you're going to do now is you're going to pause the video and do the same thing I did. Where this was a commutative property, so I put the letter A here. We have 2 times 1. I'm taking a number and I'm multiplying it by 1, so it keeps its identity. It stays the same. So I know that that is the multiplicative identity property. So I would put a G here. Okay, pause the video and try the rest on your own. Okay, hopefully you tried these on your own and didn't just wait and keep watching the video, so you used your own brain a little bit. That's important that you're pausing the video when you're being asked to. Okay, so check your work. If you made a mistake, then it's your job to figure out what that mistake was. And if you can't, then you ask me for help. Okay, On this page, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the given equation and you're going to determine which property is being represented. So if I look here, it says which property of addition is used in the following equation. The quantity 5 plus 6 plus 3 is equal to 5 plus the quantity 6 plus 3. Well, I can see that it's the same exact numbers on both sides. It's adding, and the only thing that changes is the way the numbers are grouped. Well, grouped refers to associative, so it is the associative property. So what your job would be then would be to circle associative property. Looking at this next one, it's asking you to rewrite 5 times the quantity 2 plus 10 using the distributive property. Well, we have to remember that distributive property is when you distribute the number on the outside of the parentheses to both numbers on the inside. So it's 5 times 2 plus 5 times 10. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. And 5 times 10 is 50. Well, right there. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 10 is 50. So I would circle this right here. So when you're completing these problems, make sure you're reading the directions in the question before you just start answering. Okay, pause the video and try on your own. Okay, hopefully you tried these on your own. So let's look at this first one. What is an example of the associative property of multiplication? Associative is how the numbers are grouped. So if I look here and it's multiplication, oh, this one's pretty obvious. It's the only one with multiplication, and you can see same numbers on both sides, and the only difference is how they're grouped. Next one, which property is used in the following equation? 2 times the quantity 2 plus 4 is equal to 8 times 2 plus 8 times 4. So you can see here we took this 8 and we multiplied it by both numbers. We distributed the 8 to both numbers. 8 times 2, 8 times 4. So that would be the distributive property. Next, which expression shows the commutative property of multiplication? Well, I know it has to be multiplication, and commutative is how the numbers are ordered when they move around. It's the same numbers, they're just moved around. And it's multiplication. So if I look here, I have 4 times 1 equals 4. That's multiplication, but it's not the same numbers on both sides, just moved around. If I look here, I have 3 times 5 is equal to 5 times 3. It's multiplication. It's the same number, and they're just moved around or in different orders. So this would be B. And last, which expression shows the identitive property of multiplication? Well, we know it's multiplication, and it's this word identity, so the answer is the same. We're trying to keep the same identity. So if I look here, I have 4 times 1 equals 4. We kept the 4, we multiplied it by 1, and it stayed 4. So this would be the identity property of multiplication. Okay, make sure that you have the correct answers and then move on to the next page. Okay, here we go. You're going to answer the following questions by circling the correct answer. Same thing as you were doing on the other page. So pause the video and try on your own. Okay, hopefully you tried these on your own. First one, we have addition and same numbers, both sides. They're just grouped differently. Grouped is associative property and it's addition, so your answer would be B. Next one, which property does 5 plus 0 equals 5 illustrate? Well, we know it's addition and it's keeping the same identity. A number plus 0 equals the same number. That is the identitive property of addition. It kept its identity. Next, we have, which is an example of the inverse property of addition. With the inverse, it's when you're adding the opposites to get 0. So your answer would be B. 5 plus negative 5 equals 0. 5 and negative 5 are opposites, and the answer is 0. Next, which property does 4 times 1/4 equal 1 illustrate? Well, we are taking a number and we're multiplying it by its reciprocal to get an answer of 1. We know it's multiplication, and we see here that it is not keeping its identity. So when we take a number and we multiply it by its reciprocal, it is known as the inverse property of multiplication. Next, which of the following is an example of the commutative property of addition? Commutative refers to how the numbers are moved around, and we're looking at addition. So we have to find the problem that has the same numbers on both sides. Oh, right here, same numbers on both sides, and they're adding, and they're just moved around. They're in different orders. So the answer for this would be A. And last, which property of multiplication is shown in the following? 3 times the quantity 7 plus 9 is equal to 21 plus 27. Well, we have our 3 and we distribute it to the 7. 3 times 7 is 21. We have our 3 and we multiplied it by 9. 3 times 9 is 27. So this is the distributive property because we took our 3 and we distributed it to both numbers. All right, so please make sure you have the correct information wrote down, and I will see you tomorrow.